Yankee and the Brit's the place to be. Radio living is the life for me. Airwaves spreading out so far and wide. Keep your FM, just give me that internet side.
Online is where I'd rather stay. I've got a lot of music to play. I just adore a Yankee view. Darling, I love you, but give me a show to do.
The Chat.
The Brats.
On air.
That's fair.
You are my wife.
Goodbye, British life.
The Yankee and the Brit on air.
Hello, good evening. Is this Kent Maxson?
Yes, it is.
Hello, good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yes, awesome, awesome. You talk a lot like you sound when you sing. Some people don't.
Okay.
What's he supposed to say?
I hope I talk in tune.
I hope so too. We've been playing your song for the past couple of months.
You might want to tighten up that G string a little bit.
Yeah.
How are you and where are you tonight?
I am great. I'm in my studio in Nashville, Tennessee.
Well, that's a good place to be.
Yeah, it's a nice night. Beautiful outside.
Yes, and I hear you are from McKinney. Is that right?
No, I lived there for many years. I actually grew up in Midland, Texas, but I lived in McKinney for 22 years.
Were you ever an oil man?
My dad was.
Yeah?
Yeah, my dad worked in the oil business pretty much my entire life.
And you're not walking in his shoes, huh?
No. I should have. It made life a little easier, I'm sure. When I graduated from college, I went to Texas Tech. There was no job openings for country western star or rock star. They were all for the oil business. So I had to move other places.
Boy, back then McKinney must have been nothing but ranches, wasn't
it? We moved to McKinney in, it was December of 91. And it was a tiny town then. One of the reasons we chose there was that it was small, and we couldn't afford the price of housing inside of closer to Dallas.
Oh, I was just saying to you in the email just a couple of weeks ago that Randy will probably explain it to you better than I can, but you wouldn't even recognize it now.
I was back there, I'm going to say in 2015 or 16, somewhere in there. And it was. It looked like Plano did. The overpasses had been built to these monstrosities, and
oh yes,
the service roads were no longer country roads; they were actual small freeways. So it had changed.
It's crazy around here how fast things are growing. They can't put the buildings up fast enough. Housing boom is just like They say there's generally like 1,000 people a day moving to what they call the triangle, between Dallas, Houston, and Austin, I think it is. It's just insane.
We've got kind of the same thing going on out here in Nashville. If I remember correctly, they said we have 100 people a day moving into the Nashville area.
Wow. I used to live outside of Nashville, but that was in, when was that? Late 80s, I think? 90s, maybe early 90s?
What area? What area?
Out Kingston Springs.
Yeah. I got some friends. Matter of fact, I got a cousin or second cousin that lives out there.
White Bluff is actually the little town I lived in about, 4 or 5 miles or so.
Yeah, I've driven through it. I haven't ever stopped in it, but I did drive through there.
Yeah,
I got some friends from that area. Yeah.
Yeah, my girlfriend at the time worked at the Petro fuel stop out there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I met her, driving truck. But what a great place, man! I love Tennessee, beautiful. I love the green. Is the main thing that I like about it.
Yeah, when I moved out here the very first time, I had kind of like claustrophobia in a way because I grew up out. There was no such thing as a mountain. I mean, if you stood on a beer can, you could see 20 miles out in West Texas. And I came out here, and I was just smitten. I do not plan at this time in my life to ever leave Tennessee. I may go, my wife and I are talking about maybe moving out in a little town or out on a lake. It's close by here, about a 90-minute drive. But as of now, I'm about a mile and a half from Broadway, and not far from Music Row, and I'm loving what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's why I left Ohio and came to Texas. Same reason. I'd had enough of it. Even though I missed the green. I mean, we have green here. We're in North Texas. We're not far from the Oklahoma border. We have lots of green, but, like this last month or so, it's been over 100 degrees, and everything's just, the grass is browning out, and the pretty green is gone, so I do miss that.
Yeah, I talk to my dad almost every day on the phone, and he always asks me, why did I move out there? And it's like, because I don't like the temperature out there. It's a little warm.
Yeah, it is. Now you'd have to stand on a case of beer to be able to see over all the houses.
Well, I am going to get back there. It's kind of interesting when you posted the ad on my Facebook page about it. I just got barraged with emails and texts from people about, are you going to be playing in Bells, Texas? And now it's just a radio
sorry,
interview.
That's my fault.
No, that's fine. Because what's happened out of it is a bunch of old friends have contacted me and acquaintances, and they want me to come out there and play. And I just didn't think anyone in Texas really cared. So I'm looking at right now trying to do a small little tour through there and play a few places. I like doing house concerts more than I do bars and clubs and things, because they're so much more intimate and you get to know people better, and it kind of fits what I do a little bit better.
You could come and sing to my dog.
Your dog may get even with you for that.
He might start singing along with you if I know Alfred.
Yeah.
So when did you get started with your music, Mr. Ken Maxson?
Well, if you get really just technical about it, I started writing songs when I was in first grade.
Wow. Was that first letter to that little girl sitting next to you?
Well, now that's another story, because when I was around fifth grade, I started writing them down on music paper and putting construction paper on them, stenciling in names of the songs and selling them to my classmates for a nickel or a dime. But no, in first grade, I guess the first thing I ever remember writing, I couldn't write anything down, was just walking along and singing I can't even tell you the name of the song, but making up a song. And my family got a piano, and my mom wouldn't let me take piano lessons until I reached a certain age, but I was allowed to play on it. And so I would go in on the piano, and I would, if I was mad, I'd be banging on it. If I was happy, I found the notes that were happy. If I was sad, I found the notes that were sad. And so it was kind of an extension for me and I just found that I could, whatever I was feeling inside, I could communicate through this magical little keyboard. And so then when I did start taking piano lessons, then I got dangerous, and from there, went into the guitar and other stuff.
That's beautiful.
So what's your earliest musical memory?
Well, memory just of music at all? I guess I would have to say sitting in church with my mom and my dad. I can remember singing hymns, probably between the ages of 3 and 5, somewhere in that time frame. That's my earliest memory of any kind of music.
Does your mom and dad or anybody in your family sing or play any instruments?
My mom is a church organist, and she actually, when I was, I'm going to say probably in 8th and 9th grade, wanted me to become a church organist, not full time, but but to be able to assist at church. She always thought music was a good hobby, so I took organ lessons for a while, and I never got to it. And when I was in college, there was a little town outside of Lubbock called Post, and they had a church there that needed an organist, and the minister there was a friend of my family, and so they ended up hiring me to be their organist for, I think, about a year and a half, 2 years. And then they decided they better get a real one. So I don't even remember what the original. But my mom's an organist, and my dad was actually a French horn player and wanted to major in music, but his father, from what I understand, said that he wasn't going to be a musician, and so he went to the oil business by way of geology, and he's a bass singer and was kind of like the staple. Him and my mom were very active in the church choir, So yeah, I'd say they were both musically inclined, and they both loved music.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing.
So tell us about our favourite Kent Maxson song. How'd you come up with that one?
I wish I could take credit for it, but I can only take credit for discovering the hook. I have a very good friend here. When I moved back here, I was here in Nashville originally from 83 to 92, end of December 91, so 92. And then I moved away to McKinney for 22 years. And when I came back, I started, and that was in January of 2014. I started reconnecting with the people that I had lost contact with, and I met some new ones. And so one of the people I met is a gentleman by the name of Randy Fincham. And Randy and I just hit it off and became best friends and started writing. And he's actually the very first person I started writing with again when I moved back to town. So over the years, we'd write, we'd go to each other's shows and this, that, and the other. And one day he said, I got this song I want to play for you. And he played from this song. And it was a neat song. But when he's finished, I told him, I said, it's a really nice song, but you missed the hook. And buried in that song, and by the way, the hook is usually the title of the song, but it's the one that's the payoff line. And in that song that he had written was the line, I'm 6 strings away from my dreams. And I said, man, that's the song. So I said, would you be willing to rewrite it and write another one? And he said, sure. So we started writing it. And the song really is about, whenever you co-write with someone, you both bring in elements. And since I had left the music business and worked in the audio industry, I worked for a very large speaker manufacturer. I had worked in corporate jobs and sat behind a desk, traveled around. I've been in more hotel rooms, on business than I care to remember. So, but you do what you have to do to provide and take care of your family. And so I have no beefs or complaints about, why I did it. But there was always this emptiness inside of me. And so for me, when I got back and I started singing and playing songs and writing songs again, I cannot describe to you the fulfillment that comes about, the satisfaction of when you're doing what you feel like you were created to do. And so that's kind of what I think I brought into it a little bit about you don't getting paid in this business is tough. It's and in some ways there's disdain by other occupations, be it accountants, hospitality workers, whatever. Right. Disdain for musicians, but everyone wants music. But it's kind of like you can't do anything else, so you became a musician. And so, but the other side of it is when you write a song and you touch somebody, it's magical. I cannot. Man, if I had a dime for every time someone came up to me, after a show or after they heard one of my songs and said, how that affected them, or how that was such a great song, or I cried on that one, or, when you know that you touched somebody, then for me, life has meaning. And so every one of the people that I hang out with, the musicians and songwriters, we all dream of our music being heard on a larger scale. I've been fortunate and had some, a couple of hits and some things happen that have given me, that's some of that satisfaction, but you still want your music to be heard. And so you're always just 6 strings away from your dreams, making a difference in this world, making something meaningful for somebody else. Sorry to talk so much. I got long-winded. I apologize.
That's all right.
This is what you're here for.
The first time I heard that song, I says to Randy, I says, "Hey, come and listen to this." And
I haven't been able to get it out of my head for at least 2 weeks. Every day that song is going through my head.
Yeah, it gets played every single show.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do.
It says so much. I understand exactly what you mean in your explanation. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It just says everything you want to say about a man in your position, or a man in that man's position that you picture the song coming from.
It's kind of become in its short life. It's kind of become my theme song, and I say that because up till that point, my claim to fame was, I wrote some stuff with Garth Brooks, and I had a gold record with Gary Allan. And so every show I had to play my gold record song. That's the one that people come to hear. And then this thing came out, and there's in Nashville, there's so many everyone and their dog out here writes songs, plays music, and the guy who sacks your groceries is a better guitar player than I am. I mean, it's just like the talent in this town is incredible. But when I play that song, I always close my show now with that song, and it's found an audience, and the more people that hear it, the more that say yes, that's what about. I get emails and text messages and things like this, like where you've contacted me about people wanting to know more about the song and more about what I do because of that song.
I can see why.
I'm very appreciative of it. It's become very special to me.
Do you consider yourself a writer, an artist, or both? I
consider myself a writer. The other stuff I do, because you have to make a living, and cuts in the streaming industry, they don't pay what they used to, and even if they do pay, collecting them is another thing entirely. But I am known around town as a songwriter, and what I primarily do is I write with people, and try to get my songs out there. I do the other thing to help support myself so that I can write more songs.
Well, you're doing a hell of a job, I got to tell you that.
Yes,
well, thank you.
Yes, sir. So what do you do to wind down, as in when you're not writing songs, when you're not working, when you're not on stage, what do you do?
Oh, there's a lot of things. Well, one of my wife and I do a lot of things together. One of our favorite things is every day, first thing in the morning, we go out we have a deck on the back, and we will read our devotionals and books and talk about what we want to do, drink our coffee. And we'll spend anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour out there just, chilling and making sure we're in contact with each other. We finish up our day a lot of times the same way, sitting on the back deck looking at the moon and talking about, what we want to do the next day and our dreams and our plans. So
that sounds like a song.
So my album's coming out in November, and there is a song on there that's called Old Like This. And every line in that song comes from a scene that took place between my wife and I. Before we got married, I lived in another part of town, and I had a nice swing out in the backyard, and we'd sit on that swing, looking at the moon, and just like we do now, talk. And one day, she said something to me, and we both we both were just we were dating at the time. We both were just so enthralled with the relationship, and the line hit me: I could grow old like this, because I was at such peace, and that's kind of continued on. Now don't get me wrong, we've had some spats here and there, but the bottom line is, at the core, we know that the other person's a good person, and I wouldn't trade what I have right now for anything in the world.
Can you call yourself a storyteller?
Yeah, I think that's my style. One of the reasons I got all these cuts overseas in the UK and Ireland things is because of story songs, and most of what I write has been based off of maybe the story itself wasn't based on my life, but it was about something in my life I could draw on to be able to write the story. And the person that I had a couple of mentors as I was starting in this business. Probably the most influential was a gentleman by the name of David McKechnie, and he wrote some. If you're familiar with Martina McBride's "Phones Are Ringing All Over Town," "Sweet Melinda" with John Denver. He was a staff writer for Kenny. He had a couple of Kenny cuts, but he always told me that you needed to put furniture in your songs, and what he meant by that was, rather than telling someone in a song they're sad, describe sad. So maybe the sad is, I looked at the picture that of us back in 1922 or whatever, something that describes sad. And if you can, the eggs were burnt, the toast was cold. Things where you see the scene and then you know what the person is feeling. And that's what I try to do a lot of times, during the verses. And then, of course, I try to sum it up when I get to the choruses with kind of the overall theme of what the song is. So, yeah, I think I'm a storyteller.
Paint a picture in the listener's mind.
Yeah, but you got to give them enough freedom that it's not your life they're seeing, it's theirs.
Well, you're 6 strings away from
my strings. My strings probably are sick, but
well, that song makes me think of student life. You're happy, you go lucky, you're chilling out, you're sleeping in the back of your car, you don't really care. You're
just happy.
You're dressed all scruffy, but you've got exactly what you need because you've got your music and you've got whatever change you've got in your pocket.
Yeah, well, there's some. Any songwriter, musician, I think, is going to be part dreamer. And, there's some idealism in there. When I moved back here in January of 14, I basically started over, and I was living in a bedroom of a roommate that I'd had 30 years ago. And although I was going through some emotional trials at the time, the simplicity of my life, the lack of the responsibilities that I had had for so long, just were very freeing. And then to be able to start, doing what I wanted to do all my life was just incredible. So I don't even know how I got back to that one from your question, but it is an idealistic world, and dreamers live there. You still got to have food on the table. You still got to pay the bills. But you tell me a musician who hadn't slept in a car, and I'll show you someone who had been, who hadn't really paid his dues, because that's part of it.
The minutes she remembers.
Yeah.
That tears your heart out. I'm going to have to say safely here, I'm very comfortable saying this, but that's someone very close to you?
Yes, there's actually two. I have a co-writer on that one also, Nick Nichols, and it's based on a combination of a couple things. That was the hook that one of the hooks that I brought into a session. And my story on that one is I had the biggest crush of all time on my 4th grade music teacher, Mrs. Lewis. She was hot. And her husband ended up being my junior high band director, and one of the funniest, nicest men I've known. They both had a huge influence on me. I went back to my hometown in Midland once, and I contacted them, and I met them for lunch. And they were just as wonderful as always, but there was something different about Mrs. Lewis. And there's kind of like this gaze or glaze on her eyes. And I found out that she had Alzheimer's. And it really affected me. And so I came back to Nashville. And one day, my uncle Lewis had Alzheimer's. And I know some other people, but those were the two closest people. And I remember one of my cousins saying something about, they would hang around, and every once in a while their dad would come back. And Mr. Lewis had told me something about, every once in a while, Mrs. Lewis would come back. And so I thought, how do these caregivers, they talk about they don't even recognize, how do you, if your own mother doesn't recognize you, what are they, that's got to be tough. And then the line hit me. They live for the minutes that their loved one remembers. So I shared that with Nick, and both of his parents had gone through Alzheimer's. And so Nick and I'm sitting here and we're in my studio writing. And so since all my knowledge was secondhand from observation, I'm sitting there, okay, Nick, what else happened? What else happened? And he would tell me stories, and some of them, were, if you talk to the people who are caregivers, they laugh at some of the stories because, they're funny now, but on one level, it just would tear people apart.
Right, exactly.
The story that he told me that just killed me was that, and there's a line in the song that deals with it, but he said that he would look at his mother and says, "Who am I?" And so his name is Nick, and she'd say, "Oh, you're Ben." He said, "That's right, Mom, I'm Ben." And I said, "What? Why did you tell her that?" He says, "Because it was less painful to let her think I was Ben than her to not know who I was." And I just almost cried on the spot. And so in the song, there's the one, I know she'd say I love you if she only knew my name. So there's that song is boy, you talk about getting some people going crazy over song and touching people's lives. That's another song I'm very proud of because it has made a difference in some people's lives.
Yeah, I really get that very. Oh boy, it's a I guess. Well, you probably know from letters you get and things. It's very hard feeling to describe, but I don't know if it's emptiness or broken heart or gee, I'm glad that doesn't happen to me, or I can't explain it, but I just it just turns your insides inside out, I guess.
Yeah, and then the guy who did the video for me did just an incredible job and on a very tight budget, and that's another one of those. I'm just very, very pleased with the results of that it's had an impact on people's lives.
So what's your future plans? I mean, are you going to just lean more toward writing after your CD's finished, or are you going to try to just keep doing what you're doing?
Well, you wing it. I've got I have a very close friend in Ireland who. His name is Jordan Mogi, and I would encourage anyone, if you love traditional country music, you need to look this guy up.
Oh, let me cut you off. We have Jordan Mogi songs, and there isn't a bad one in the bunch.
He is incredible. Well, he's got an album coming out that's got 12 songs on it that he and I co-wrote with our friend Gerald Smith. They're all three-way rights. So those are coming out.
Yeah, we had Jordan. We had Jordan on the show. How long ago was that? A year ago?
Yeah, about a year ago. He's amazing.
What a great guy.
Oh, he's incredible, and what a humble person. Great voice. I love him like a brother. We kid around. He's my brother from an Irish mother, and he's been here, and he's going to be coming back. And when I went to Ireland the first time, I didn't know him then. But we've already made plans, and I'm going to go over there, and we're going to do some more stuff together. Okay. But anyway, you asked him about songwriting. That's coming out. I just had a song released with a very talented young lady named Alyssa Trahan. She's having her stuff distributed through Sony. Matter of fact, if anyone's listening out there, go find Alyssa Trahan, Leading the Pack. Great song, great singer, great person. So I'm going to continue to write songs and continue to pitch them. I just contacted someone the other day about doing another album. I'm actually looking at probably doing 2 smaller EPs rather than 1 large album. And I'm going to probably start on that within the next 2 months. So I'll do it until I run out of money. And if I run out of money, then I'll sell everything I got and do another one.
Is that all you do now, is just write and sing?
That and my wife and I run an Airbnb.
There you go.
Is that a bed and breakfast, as I know it, or what you guys know it?
It's kind of a bed. We don't cook the people the breakfast. We have the room. We have a very large Airbnb. It's the whole second floor of our house, and we accommodate 12 to 16 people up there, and we really enjoy it. To be honest, I mean it's fun.
What does the word air mean when you say Airbnb? I've seen that so much, but I don't quite put it together. Well,
my understanding, and this is what I was told, was the people that started this company started they had like a bedroom to pull in extra money. They advertised, if you need to stay here for the night, we have a couple of air mattresses and you can sleep in our spare room. And they started doing so well with it that they connected via the computer to a lot of other people who had like a bed or an air mattress or a cot, or so that people coming to their town could find a place to stay. Well, then it's expanded to where it was rooms and then entire floors, entire units. So it's basically kind of like for us, we have 3-bedroom suites upstairs, and then we have a sleeping loft along with that. And it's really an entire apartment. And people come to town. We don't cook food for them. We don't do anything like that. We just make sure that everything is clean and spotless when they come. And if they need any help as far as their way around town, my wife makes sure they know where everything is. So it's short-term rental.
Those air beds, I think I would be tempted to be outside the room when they're in bed at night, be outside the room and make one of those like noises like air's being deflated from something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
She's a troublemaker.
I am a troublemaker. I love to cause trouble.
Hey, since you moved to Nashville, have you ever been starstruck?
I don't think I've ever really been starstruck. I met my first time here. I met quite a few of the stars, and so that kind of respectful, yeah, cautious about approaching. There's still some boundary rules I think that are in place, but I'm never starstruck with any person that I've met. The closest I come to being starstruck, and my musical idol was Jim Croce, and I flew to San Diego with my wife, and his widow had opened a restaurant there called Croce's, and I met her, and that was the closest I think I've been to starstruck. That was really an incredible evening.
You got any important rules that you live by?
I guess my rules, first and foremost, I hope I live my faith. I don't try to preach it. I think that if I'm going to put it in a phrase, my basketball coach once says, "What you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear a thing you're saying." So I try to be authentic.
Wow, that's deep.
Outside of my dad, my basketball coach was probably the most influential man in my life. And so I try to be authentic. I try to live my faith. And then I had the only other two rules I'd live with are the ones that I was told by my Savior, and that is love God with all my heart, all my soul, and all my mind. Love my neighbor as myself. I just try to do the right thing. I don't always succeed. I've hurt people. I made enemies along the way. I've done things I shouldn't have done, but I try my best to do the best I can.
You have any heroes?
Oh, I have a lot of them. My dad, first and foremost. Jim Croce was a musical hero. I think those would be my two biggest heroes. As far as my basketball coach, I'm just thinking about the people.
And that music teacher.
Yeah. Mr. Lewis, Mrs. Lewis and Mr. Lewis are special. And I don't put them in terms of heroes, and maybe I should. I put them in terms of just they affected not just my life, but thousands of people's. I mean, the kids that they had an influence on, and so for me, I look at it as a hero, as a role model. I put them on a pedestal, and I don't want to sound like I don't honor those two, because they are so special to me and they did so much for me. But the heroes are the ones you modeled your life after, and I didn't become a teacher.
I see. Let me give you my 10 boring questions, and then we'll let you go.
Oh, these are so boring.
Uh-oh. Okay.
She thinks these are so dull.
Well, they are. They are very dull questions.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word? Wow.
But you wasn't expecting it to be that boring, was you?
No, I just want to make sure that I want to make sure I give you at least I may give you one in the top 10. I guess because out of all the words that are in the world, I don't know. I guess my faith, Faith. I hope I spelled it right. Faith.
What's your least favorite word?
Hate, anger. One of those two.
What turns you on?
Authenticity or creativity. Those are probably as far as I was thinking of words, things. The thing that just gets me excited about life is creating. If I'm in, it doesn't matter if I'm creating something with wood or something with paper, words, music, videos. I do a lot of video things. Creating is probably the biggest turn on I have in my life.
What turns you off?
Injustice.
There's plenty of that.
Yeah.
What sound do you love?
There's a lot of sounds. Probably the most comforting thing. I don't know if it's a sound. It makes a sound, but it's not. You're gonna probably think, well, man, I thought this guy's weird. He really is. I've always equated, probably in some of the most trying times of my life, I've gone walking. I love to go walking. There's a little lake around here called Radnor Lake that I lived at the first year I was here. I moved back. There's just a lot of, I love walking through nature. But even back when I lived in McKinney, there's Town Lake there, and I used to walk around that. And and in those walks, I'm talking to God or silently praying to Him. And I always felt that his way of answering me was a little gust of wind or a little bit of a breeze. So if I feel a little bit of a breeze or a wind blow by me, I feel like he's caressing me, and it makes a sound through your ears, but it's something I feel more than anything else.
Now, why would anybody think that's so odd?
I don't know. Sometimes you get afraid of sharing some of the stuff that you feel.
You're more than welcome to go as deep as you want, because some of us may understand whether you think they don't or not. What sound do you hate?
Oh, gee. I can tell you today the sound I hated was my little puppy yapping at 4:30 in the morning. I hated the bark. Yeah, every once in a while he was another Adam and his girlfriend Kate, and went to an Irish pub here, and we toasted with Middleton. And my wedding to my wife Cindy, we bought a couple of bottles of Middleton to have a toast. We bring it out for special occasions. It's a little expensive, but it's my favorite alcoholic drink.
It's very good. What profession other than yours would you like to attempt?
Okay, if we can play fantasy, professional basketball.
What profession would you not like to do?
Oh.
We've had a gauntlet of answers for this one.
Well, just going into the chat room for a second, Russell Craig in the chat says that he hates the sound of Randy's sarcasm. he loves you, really, Randy.
He's another great artist. He's been on the show,
yeah,
too.
Russell Craig. Guy. Go in the YouTube and type in Russell Craig, Call Me the Rain. It's my favourite Russell Craig tune. I've played it that many times.
Profession I don't anything where I'm going to be locked in a room, selling insurance or sitting at a desk, anything that takes me where I'm locked in a room. If it's a regimented job, I don't want to do it.
Understood completely. One more, the easy one.
Okay.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well done, my good and faithful servant.
And it's that easy, isn't it?
Well, it's what I'm hoping for. I mean, it's not what I'm hoping for. It's what I'm assured of. I know that I'm never going to be a perfect human being. I've got more mistakes in my life than I ever want to. I've had to face up with a lot of different things. So, but I rest in the faith that someone died for my sins, and that I'm doing the best I can, and that it's not my efforts that are going to get me saved. It's going to be, my Savior, and I'm grateful for what He's given me. He has done so much for me. I'm living a life that I could have only dreamed of and did dream of. So I'm very grateful that I can write music. I'm very grateful that I have a beautiful house to live in. I'm very grateful for the friends and people who want to write with me, hunt me out to write with me. I'm grateful I get to sing songs. I'm grateful that I get to talk to you all about my music. I'm grateful for all the friends that I've made throughout. I have so many friends in McKinney. My church there is incredible. So I have a lot to be thankful for.
Well, you were an amazing man, and we were so honored to have you stop and spend a little time with us and tell us about some of these songs and where you've been and what you've done. Just can't thank you enough.
I appreciate the opportunity, and when I get back there with this next little tour, I will definitely give you all a buzz. Maybe we can connect.
Hook up with us.
Warn us in advance so I can hide everything.
So we can hide the dog. He's pretty big. He's like a horse.
And I was thinking more like clean the house up and clean the shop up, because it's all combined into one place. Well, thank you very much, Kent Maxson. You're awesome. And we're going to play your, of course, 6 Strings Away and Drunk a Little More, the last 2 songs we have.
I appreciate it. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you very much. And tell Nashville I said hey.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yanki and the Brit on an independent Sunday night. Here he is, Kent Maxson, with that very cool tune, 6 Strings Away from My Dreams.